A bird sang this song to me. There was a message in its melody, sweetest lyrics that I ever heard. There's a message in the songs of birds. He said, tomorrow is another day, but living is the only way that tomorrow's gonna ever come. Listen to the words of the song. Everything's gonna be alright. Everything is gonna be. Everything is gonna be alright.
Oh, those boys are much too much. Those boys are much too much. We got the spirit. We're hot. We can't be stopped. We got the spirit. We're hot. We can't be stopped. We're gonna beat them and bust them.
The smallest moments can have the biggest impact on a child's life.
Let's get a little bit rowdy. R-O-W-D-Y.
Take time to be a dad today. Call or visit fatherhood.gov to learn more.
Greetings and welcome to A Sip of Inspiration. I'm Stephanie Wilson-Coleman. I am known as the Empowerment Doctor, and today's session will be filled with empowerment. So whenever you see me with a piece of paper in hand, you know we got some work to do, right? So let that be a key to you. I want to remind you that today we're going to talk about balance. Happiness is not a matter of intensity, but a matter of balance, order, rhythm, and harmony. So as you think about that, we're going to take a quick break to allow you to get your own paper and pencil so that you can keep up with us during this session. Own paper and pencil so that you can keep up with us during this session. Own paper and pencil so that you can keep up with us during this session. Own paper and pencil so that you can keep up with us during this session. Own paper and pencil so that you can keep up with us during this session. Own paper and pencil. Greetings and welcome back to A Sip of Inspiration. I'm Stephanie Wilson-Coleman. I am your host for today's show. And today's show is entitled, Where's Your Balance? With that in mind, we're going to talk about balance. So you probably are wondering, what kind of balance are we going to talk about? Because earlier I talked about balance being a matter of order and harmony and rhythm and not necessarily intensity. So as you're watching this show, I want you to do a yoga pose that is called the tree pose. And that's where you stand up straight, you put your hands over your head like this, and you draw one knee, one leg, one foot up against the other leg. And as you do and you stay in that pose, you should be experiencing the ebb and flow that it's taking your body in order for you to maintain that pose. And as you're doing that pose, you're not chastising yourself. You're not concerned about what someone else said or did. You're not even concerned about what's going on around you. You're only concerned about maintaining that pose and making any adjustments you need to make to stay in the pose. So if you notice, as you're in that pose, you're not concerned about how do I look, am I doing a good job? You're just focused on the pose. So life is a lot like that. Life is filled with ebbs and flows, and you do have to make changes. And you are constantly juggling between what's right, you know, to do this. But if you stay in that flow, without judging yourself, just in the flow, you'll find that all the things in all areas in your life will remain balanced. And even after you do that, though, some people say, but I'm still having financial problems. So we're going to apply the technique of that very balancing pose to your financial situation. And this is why you need pen and paper. And if this is your first time working with me, you probably need some tissue, but that's okay too. I find chocolate helps a lot too. So let's get started. So when you think about your financial life, most people think about setbacks. So we're going to talk about setbacks first. So financial setbacks, I want you to start to think about and list things that have been a financial setback for you. And you define what a financial setback is. So it could be that maybe some of the bills were much higher than you budgeted for or you anticipated. It could be that perhaps you lent someone some money and they were supposed to pay it back and they didn't pay it back. And that has affected your ability to remain current on your bills. It could be that you were suddenly laid off and that gave you a financial setback. It could be simple things like you got a ticket on your vehicle that you weren't expecting or moving violation and now you have to find money to pay that. Or there was a sudden illness in your family or a sudden illness with you and it's costing a lot more money than you expected. Simply could be that maybe you overspent in the grocery store or you bought something that your emotions said, yes, I need that, like a new pair of shoes or an outfit, but your finances said otherwise. So however you list your financial setbacks, you're the judge there. No one else is, you are. But things that have happened in your life, and it doesn't have to be over a specific time period. So it could be in the last 30 days, 6 months, it could be a year. Think back even a few years, because what you will find and what science has proven is that the emotions that we had several years ago, those negative emotions are still showing up in places that we don't even realize. And often those negative emotions are showing up in your finances. So as that clock ticks, just list about 5. I don't want you to try to list every one of them, but just about 5. And any of the ones that I mentioned, if those are accurate for you, then list those. And if you're one of those lucky, rare people who have had no financial setbacks, then you don't have any financial setbacks to list. But then I want you to just think about emotional setbacks. So if you're all right, all cool in your world with money, what about emotions? Was there an argument with a spouse? Was there a divorce? Children? Best friends? Are you holding on to something that you're incredibly angry about that has been years ago? And perhaps that person's moved on, but you still feel as if you're owed an apology, that you're owed something to set this right, to make this right. So as you do that, then we're going to do what I call and what's called the emotional temperature. So we're going to do a money emotional temperature. So if money is your setback, you have things listed, I want you to think about that in terms of money. But if there's no money issues, if there are emotional issues, I want you to think about that. And emotional issues don't have to be great, big, gigantic mountain issues. Usually it's the small issues that bother us, that linger on, like someone putting the toilet paper on wrong, or not getting the amount of help around the house that you need, or someone constantly spending a little bit too much, or saying things that hurt your feelings. It can be those kinds of things too. So, as you know, on a thermometer, you see it can go up and it can go down. So the game we're going to play is, I want you to rate the emotional scale from a 1 to a 10. I would say 0, but that's not realistic. No one's ever at 0. Even if you're feeling emotionally stable right now and financially stable, you're still not at 0 because emotions seem to ebb and flow, and so do finances. It was Eric Butterworth that says, if we just simply could watch what we think and only react to that we needed to react, then life would sort of go like this. But at some point, we find ourselves pretty bored on that even scale. So we create this drama, or we draw this drama to us, or we willingly jump into the drama because we need this, because this is where we find the excitement. So that's why we don't get to choose 0. So I want you to judge your mood. So from 1 to 2, everything is pretty good. 10, you're just still angry, you're still upset, you're still feeling the effects of that financial setback, at least emotionally, if not physically. You're still feeling that. So, and 10 means like catastrophic. So everything in your life is not going to be a 10. So it's either going to be life-threatening, maybe it cost you to lose something like a good credit rating, maybe it caused you to lose a job, somehow it was life-threatening, maybe it caused you to nearly lose your house. That would be a 10. But I don't want you to take the chicken weight out either and make everything a 5, because if everything were in the middle of the road, you would just kind of be living life like this, meaning you would have enough of everything and absolutely everything that you desired in life, and we know that that's not true either. So as you're thinking about that, I want you to also think about a word that you could use in order to describe that incident. One word. So if you're down about 1 or 2, the word may be something like amazing, awesome, good. If you're in the middle, the word may be something like, scary, breathtaking, panicky. And if you're all the way up there at 8, 9, and 10, the word may be something like maybe 2 words, life-threatening, disastrous. So what is your word for that financial setback or that emotional setback? And I want you to take a few seconds here to just think about that word. And I want you to choose the first word that comes to mind. Don't censor it, because generally that first word is how you really think about it. And sometimes our first words scare us. So if the first word that you thought was like, God, disastrous, life-threatening, and then you're saying, well, no, not really, I want you to go with disastrous and life-threatening, because that's how you really, really, really feel about that situation. Now I want you to write all of that down. Okay? Then I want you to look at each of those situations, and I want you to ask yourself this question. What are the patterns in each one of these situations, and what are the similarities in each one of these situations? And since we're talking about it as how it relates to finances, if you're having difficulty at this point, go back through your bank account over the last 90 days. And of course, if you're following me, you've already done that. So you want to go back over your bank accounts, I would say a year, categorize your expenses, and I want you to pay particular attention to when your expenses are high and you bought things that you didn't necessarily need. They weren't for sustaining your life, they weren't for sustaining your energy or your home life or even your job. They were just things. Look at the entertainment column, look at clothes. Were there times when you bought more things than you normally would buy? And then I want you to ask yourself, as you've listed these patterns of what's going on, what was happening with you emotionally? What was happening in your life? So an example at this point could be, so let's say that you've noticed that when you go through your financial setbacks or your checking account, you notice that, oh God, there's a lot of retail therapy. There's a lot of trips to Macy's or Marshall's or wherever you do retail therapy. It could be the dollar store, but there are a lot of trips there. What was going on in your life that those trips occurred? So were you making purchases because you needed to feel good about yourself? Maybe you were depressed or in a funky state, needed to feel good about yourself? Or are there food-related purchases where maybe you still needed to be feeling good about yourself? And we deserve it is what we usually tell ourselves. So those patterns are really telling about how you are reacting with using your money in emotional times. Now, as you think about that, I want you to ask yourself, when you identify these patterns, now are they really similar? And that doesn't mean that the same incident happened every time. So it doesn't mean that you were lied to every time you had a financial setback, but you were emotionally affected by that. So it doesn't mean that one of your children didn't do something right or somebody didn't pay you back each and every time, but you were emotionally affected. So what was the pattern? What are the emotions and what happened? Also, if you do have 5 things listed where you lent money to people and they did not pay you back, that is a red flag. Okay, so if we had red flags right now, we would be waving them all over the place. That's a message to you, proof to you, to stop lending those people money because they never pay it back. And if it is the same people borrowing money that never pay it back, the message to you is they will never be able to pay it back because they've never actually fixed the problem that they have. And their problem isn't money. When you have an emotional problem that needs to be corrected, there is not enough money in the world that will fix that. That's why you can have millionaires and billionaires. When things happen and don't go their way, they pout like they're 2 years old because it's emotional. It's not about the money. So as you think about that, we're going to take a quick break because I know that that's a heavy lift for you right now. And generally when you're in that emotion, I want you to remember that tree pose that we talked about. Remember how you're ebbing and flowing and making minor adjustments. And every time you can perfect that tree pose or stay in it for a second, you're literally patting yourself on the back. So I want you to remember to pat yourself on the back, to just know that there is an ebb and flow, even in financial situations and even in emotional situations. So with that in mind, we'll be right back.
I've known Mikhail and Giro about 6 months.
She's spunky, she's always cracking jokes, she's lighthearted about things.
There was an immediate connection.
And really young at heart also.
I try to keep up with what these young people is doing and knowing.
It's nice that Meals on Wheels created an opportunity for both of us to connect with each other.
We laugh and talk about so many things. They both came and told me she was pregnant.
We were just excited to tell somebody the news. We just found out ourselves.
They hadn't even told their family. Oh my gosh, you guys did it! I felt good that I was the first person to know.
We both want our kid to have some of her personality and her characteristics.
I said, you guys have no idea how I really, truly feel about you.
Oh, she's making me cry.
Drop off a warm meal and get more than you expect. Volunteer at americaletsdolunch.org.
America, let's do lunch.
I want to thank everyone for making this day so special. Dad, you've been my inspiration. I love you.
I love you too.
And Mom, I miss you so much.
Type 2 diabetes steals the lives we cherish most. But it can be prevented. Almost 80 million Americans have prediabetes, but because prediabetes doesn't always have symptoms, 9 out of 10 people who have it don't even know it. Know your risk. More importantly, do something about it. Eat better, stay active, and lose weight. You have a lot to live for. Stop diabetes for yourself and the people you love. Learn how at checkupamerica.org or talk to your doctor.
Welcome back to A Sip of Inspiration. I'm Stephanie Wilson-Coleman, the Empowerment Doctor. And I am back for the next part of Where's Your Balance? So when we left off, we were talking about financial setbacks. So I want you to take a few deep breaths at this moment, sort of relax and release the tension. And if you have to, and if you're able to, stand up and sort of move around and shake your legs and your arms, because I want you to move that negative energy out of your body. Take a deep breath. And that's just the beginning of the work. So now this next section of Where's Your Balance is a bit easier, because we're going to talk about fun stuff like financial windfalls. Of course, life is never filled with just setbacks. It's always windfalls too. And you have to remember, life is like riding a bicycle. You have to keep getting back on the bike, and we're back on that bike now. So in financial windfalls, I want you to think about 5 things that were financial windfalls. And you decide what they are. So some of us could write down we won the lottery. Some could be like an emotion, like a promotion. It could be an instance where someone gave you some money that you did not expect. It could be an instance where maybe you got a refund that you weren't expecting and it was more than you actually thought. You were expecting $200 and you got $400. Anything where extra money is concerned, or something that happened to you that actually has a financial equivalent. It could be that someone paid a bill for you. It could be that, oh, you did have all those tickets like in the first exercise and you went to court and they dismissed them all. So I want you to list those financial windfalls. Doesn't matter the amount of money. It doesn't matter the actual event, but something that happened to you financially that was unexpected. And as you list that, the next thing I want you to do now is to that money emotional temperature thing. We're going to do that again. So remember, the rules are around 1 to 2, everything's just perfect. 10, you were just off the chain. You're just excited about it. Everything is kind of perfect here, but you're just excited as you go up the ladder. Just excited. This thing changed your life or made you feel so good. It was ecstatic. It was just great. So whatever that is. Then, after you've done that, there's that word, remember? I want you to assign a word to it. Amazing, gorgeous, exciting. It could be a phrase. Oh, wow. It just lit my heart up. It could be, but what a word would be fun? Just one word for each of the instances. And try to refrain from using the same word, too, because these were, even though we're going to find they were related, they were different situations. So you should have your word, and you should have your temperature. Now, in your financial windfall, I want you to think about the patterns and the similarities of the emotions. So, are you excited when someone gives you Lots of money. Are you excited when things just wrongs are made right? Like maybe your tickets were dismissed. You excited because money showed up? So what are those patterns? Then I want you to think about, what do you think the cause was? So, and why exactly were you excited? And what caused it? Was it something that you did, or was it something external to you? And then as you think about that, I want you to do the exact same thing for the financial setbacks. What was the cause? Was it something you did? Or was it something external to you? Now, in the financial setbacks, normally in the financial setbacks area, what we find is that we have done things that actually set us back. It is difficult sometimes for us to follow that correlation, because when we do good things to help people that we believe are good people and it doesn't go well for us, we have a hard time believing that we were the cause of that. But for those of you who follow me, I frequently recommend you read the book entitled The Richest Man in Babylon. It's a paperback book. I think the PDF is even online for free now, and it will give you some very distinct rules around lending money. Often we lend money without knowing those rules and without even implementing those rules toward everybody we meet. So one of the rules is, what is going to change in that person's life? What are they going to do? What action are they going to take that will allow a change in their life so they will be able to pay you back? What's going to be different about them? What are they going to do differently? Because if you're lending money over and over and over to the same person and they never pay it back, one thing is clear, that I said earlier, it's not about money. Money won't help. It's emotional. And what are they going to do? So people will often overspend their financial capability in order to make themselves feel good. But money only has one job, and that's to help you provide the necessities that you need in your life and the things that you want to do. It pays for stuff. Its job is not to make you happy, and its job is not to make you sad. It is a method of exchange for goods and services. That's its only job. So then you have to also ask yourself, what's going to change in you that will help you to understand and know finally that you are not the savior of everyone you know, even those close to you. Everyone is responsible for saving themselves. So we'll refresh the financial rules. Remember, save 10%, tithe or give to charity 10%, and then put aside another 10% so that you can make big purchases. The first 10% is for retirement. That second 10% that you're saving for big purchases will be so you can save for automobiles or washers and dryers or vacations and things like that. And then you live out of 70%. That's the basic rule. The next rule is no credit card debt. Work to pay off your credit card debt. Now, one of my favorite financial advisors said, go through your house, find stuff you can sell, and sell that stuff, and use that money in order to pay down your credit card debt. Now, one thing metaphysically that will do for you is it creates a vacuum. It creates that opening so that the universe can bring to you ideas about what you can do in order to open your minds and your hearts up to a financial influx. Because perhaps The universe has been knocking on your heart saying, you should do this, you should do this. And we talk about that all the time. We say to each other or our friends, you know, girl, I'm going to start doing this. Or you know what, I need to do this and I can make more money, but we never get moving. And once you create that vacuum, then the universe can bring to you many more ideas and even strategies as to how to get it started. So, no credit card debt. And the rule has always been to have 3 to 6 months of expenses saved, because when the economy ebbs and flows, just like that tree pose that you're still trying to stay in, the economy does the same thing. So you're going to have some emergency fund. And in today's world, you probably need 6 to 12 months, depending upon how much money you make, what your expenses are, and if you become unemployed, how long will it take you to find a job? Some people can find jobs quickly. Some people have skills that may take them 3 to 6 months to find a job. So you have to take all of that in consideration. The other thing to remember financially is when you lend money, what resources does the person have to pay you back? Because why should we have 2 broke people? You shouldn't be broke, they shouldn't be broke. If they're already broke, then they need to be the only broke person in that equation, not you also. And if that sounds too harsh, here's a favorite question that a friend of mine asked that lives in California. He never says no, he just says, how much money do you have on your problem? And if they say 0, he says, that's how much money I have on your problem. Because someone else's problem should not become more important to you than it is to them. Now, if they have $25 on that problem and it's a $1,000 problem, then you only have $25 on that problem. They need to find more people to ask for $25 so they can solve their $1,000 problem. Because when people become active in finding solutions to their own issues, people will then remember the pain, and then they will not do that anymore. And if they repeat that mistake again, it's called insanity. So you got those rules, right? So now, that means that you have to look at those emotions within your own self that says that you are the savior. We talked about that before. Everyone is sort of busy saving themselves. So it's kind of difficult to save others. And that emotion that you have that says, I have to save people, you need to ask yourself, why? Where is that coming from? Is that coming from a place that says, if I save them, they'll like me? If I save them, they'll love me? So are you trading financial gain or money for emotional reasons? And if that's the case, then you need to ask yourself why. And we need to dig into those feelings and those emotions that have you believing that you can buy love and you can buy friendship. And the minute you buy love and friendship, when you have no more money, the friends are all gone, and the love draws up too. So, we've talked a little bit about the cause, and I've got a question I want you to consider before we take a break is, as you look at the financial setbacks and your financial windfalls, did you notice that you're really, really, really sad when you have a setback, but you're really, really, really happy when you have a windfall? And if you notice that, you have a question to answer too. You have given money the ability to make you happy and to make you sad. Why? Why are you sad when there's setbacks and excited when there are windfalls? And often with the windfalls generally happen for most people as some act that is outside of themselves. whereas the emotional setback was something that you did. You overspent, you lent money to people who you should not have been lending money to. Your savings is not there. You've allowed your credit cards to get out of control. And those are all things that you have control over. But on the other hand, this windfall where, wow, I'm excited this happened. We always like to say, I hear a lot of people say, oh, God is so good, God did this, okay? Actually, if God did the good, then you're sort of blaming God on the bad, when you are the common denominator in the good and the bad. And it's your actions that caused both. So what we want to do is take our emotions out of this and just look at the facts. Financial setbacks are our responsibility. Make a list of the things that you did and make sure you don't do those anymore. Now, we talked about 5, so that could be really harsh. So let's pick one that we're not going to do anymore. Let's start there. Because if you could implement a change in that one habit, that one emotion, you'll find that the other 4 will come in line. And as far as the windfalls are concerned, whenever there's a financial windfall that actually results in additional cash, apply the rules to that. 10% goes aside for retirement, 10% gets to tithes or charity, 10% gets saved for purchases, and 70% is what you live out of. However, if you have no savings at all, put that 70% in the savings so that you can start to build up that emergency fund. So in that emergency fund, your first goal should be your first $1,000, and after that, it should be anywhere from 3 to 12 months of expenses. So that's what you do with that. So while you're digesting all of that and taking deep breaths, I want you to think about that while we go to break, and we'll be back shortly. Well, that went faster than I thought. Okay, we'll talk about something else. Let's see. Okay. Welcome back to A Sip of Inspiration. This is Stephanie Wilson-Coleman, the Empowerment Doctor. And today's segment is Where's Your Balance? And we're talking about your balance as it relates to your finances. As you know, I believe that in order to have a good life, you need enough of everything. You need good health, you need money, you need friends, you need laughter, joy. You even need some sadness in there too. So, because I think that all of our emotions come to tell us something, and all of our emotions, we should make friends with them all. So, we talked about financial windfalls, and we talked about financial setbacks. Setbacks we talked about first because those are generally where our negative emotions show up, and we seem to keep, they fuel our conversations. We have endless conversations about how we lent someone some money and they couldn't pay us back, or how someone caused you an unexpected expense. Maybe they ran up the heat or the telephones or had a car accident, whatever it is. So I think it's important for us to talk about that. Now, we don't talk a lot about the windfalls because we believe that setbacks and windfalls are not related. But they are actually related because the one things that they have in common are the emotions that are in each one of those experiences. And if you noticed your results on the papers that you have in front of you now, you notice that during the setbacks, your emotions are really high toward the anger and upset, sadness, even maybe depression in. Whereas on the windfalls, man, you're excited, everything is going well. So we have taken control of our emotions, the responsibility for our emotions, and given it to money instead of keeping control of our emotions ourselves. Now, one way we can start to improve our financial health, as we talked about, is looking at and analyzing our debt. I talk a lot about this because if you're not careful, and even I have to be careful, if you're not careful, that debt will just ease up. First, it's eating out once a week. Then you're too tired and you're eating out 3 times a week. Oh my God, then you're ordering in. Then you're eating a snack. Then you're buying food and drinks for your friends. And you got to have new outfits to go with that stuff too. So all of a sudden, your debt is just insurmountable. Or maybe you have too many cars. Maybe that's your problem. Maybe you like automobiles. So what we need to do is focus on eliminating that debt. So the first thing that we talked about earlier, and I always talk about, is knowing what your triggers are and how you actually use your money. What are you exchanging your money for? So the best way to find out is to go through your bank account for 3 to 6 months, categorize the expenses. So that would sort of look like you would have a column for your household expenses, mortgage, utilities, insurance, the things that you have to have, your automobile insurance, your automobile car notes. And then you're going to look at food. And the one thing that we don't normally do is look at entertainment and then other basic expenses such as dry cleaning or washing your clothes. If you use a laundromat, that expense can add up. So there's dry cleaning, but if you don't categorize every dime, you won't know how you're spending your money. So once you've done that, I have a saying that you can get broke in the grocery store. So look at what you're spending in the grocery store. And when you go to the grocery store, are you looking for the bargains? Are you using coupons or buying sales? I do know that there are some health issues and that you have to be mindful of. And so in some instances, you're not able to make any reductions there, not any big reductions there on a regular basis. However, let's say that you eat a certain kind of food and that food item can be stored over time. So perhaps when it goes on sale, you want to consider buying it in bulk. So any items that you buy in the grocery store that you can buy in bulk when they're on sale, buy those in bulk and get that savings then. Look through coupons. There are a lot of household items from toothpaste to mouthwash to all those things that we can actually buy in bulk and use coupons. Now, I know that's a little bit of work and it may not yield you a big savings, but over time, buying in bulk does yield a big savings for you. Also, entertainment. Look at where you go, what you do. Is there a way to do it cheaper? Is there a way to find the savings? I know recently there in some of the theaters they have these theater specials where for a fixed amount of money a month you can see a certain number of movies, and if you're a frequent moviegoer, so maybe you want to look at that so that you can get some savings there. So try to find savings right now where you are. I talk a lot about cell phone bills. Everyone has cell phone bills, and the cell phone carriers are very anxious to sell you a lot of data. They're incredibly happy about that because they get a lot more money from you for data that you may or may not use. So I want you to call the customer service department of your cell phone plan and ask them to tell you what your monthly data usage. If they can't, they can at least tell you what your average data usage is. And then look at how much data you pay for. And then I want you to get your plan to be changed to support the amount of data that you use. So if you're only using 50 gigabytes of space a month, why are you buying 1 TIG, paying for 1 TIG of data? And a lot of us think, oh, we'll use more data because that's what they sell you. All those wonderful pictures all those pictures that you see on the news, I mean on the commercials, where you're going to take pictures of your loved ones, pictures on your vacations, pictures on everything you do, silly pictures, happy pictures, sad pictures. A lot of us don't really take those pictures, but they've got us thinking that we really need the room just in case. But if your average over time is only 10 gigabytes of data, never in your life are you going to use 1 gigabyte. So reduce that plan, and that can often cut your cell phone bills in half. Also, look at any contracts that you may sign, and don't fall into that idea that you have got to have the newest, greatest, best cell phone. Nothing against cell phone companies. Some of us use all the data that we have available to us. But I want you to literally take about a week and write down, what do you use your phone for? I know a lot of people will use their phones for social media, but they won't use their phones for research. So what do you use your phone for? How much of that data, how much of those apps are you actually using? And if you have apps on your phone, a lot of those apps have a monthly charge. So you want to delete those apps that you are not using. And that way, that will save your monthly charge. Also in data, look at music you have on there. So if you have music still saved up from 5 years ago, are you really still listening to that? So it's taking up room in data, so move it to a space that doesn't have a monthly charge to it, so you can download it to many of external drives that doesn't have a charge. And then that will also free up data usage so that you're not paying that expense. And then ask yourself, does every one of your children really need a cell phone? And for kids who are like under 10, where are they going to be where there's no adult? And if they do encounter the proverbial bad guy, is he going to say, I'm going to give you a chance to get your phone out of your backpack that's in the closet put away so you can call your mother and call the police? So are they going to really be given that opportunity? So it seems like we need to teach our children different skills as opposed to relying totally on that data plan. Another thing is insurance. Sometimes we have far too much insurance. So look at what you're insuring, the replacement cost for what it is you are insuring, and making sure that you have enough insurance, but not too much insurance. So what generally happens is sometimes we have a $200,000 home, but we're insuring $1 million home. And we want to be sure that we're not doing that. We want it to be as close to the right side as possible. And food. How much food are you throwing away every week that you made life decisions for in the grocery store? So a lot of us throw away a lot of food. If you think back, I think back when I was little, on Saturdays my mother didn't cook, so on Saturdays it was a soup day, so everything that was left over, including things like mashed potatoes, was put in a big pot and it was made soup. And it was the actual best soup that I've ever had. It was different every week, but nothing was thrown away. So learn how to repurpose leftovers. So you may fix a meal today that costs $10 to fix and there's leftovers, and then you figure out how to repurpose that. So for instance, you can take the baked chicken and tomorrow maybe you want to shred it up and make tacos or put it in some pasta or something. But don't throw away food. There's a lot of statistics all over social media about the amount of food that we waste here in the United States. And even with that, there are still people who don't have enough money for food or are food insecure. So if food is not a problem for you, be sure that you are very good with it and that you don't throw that away. Now we're going to get to the hard part, which is those credit card debts. So those are all easy things that you can do. So I know as you're looking at me and says, I do not have time to do all of that. But do you want to have enough money so you can minimize your financial setbacks? Because generally that's the cause of a setback, as you were not financially prepared for that, so you had no emergency fund. So you actually experienced a setback. So on this credit card issue, and you hear me talk about it a lot, and I'm not the only one, is because we're recently finding out that we're probably going to live to 104. And if we're going to live to 104, we're going to need a lot of money. And we're going to be in good shape when we live to 104. So we're really going to need a lot of money because we're going to like to do things. So, and we'll have time because we'll be retired. So I want you to make a list of all of the credit card debt you have. There's two schools of thoughts on how you make the list. So one says, list them in order of balance, with the lowest balance first and the highest balance at the bottom. And another one says, list them according to the highest interest rate. Either one works. As a matter of fact, if you execute either one, it's shown that you're still going to finish debt-free within about 3 to 4 months of each other. So it's not like it's going to save you 2 or 3 years. So a lot of times, though, there's emotional satisfaction with getting rid of the lowest balances first. So you list those bills. In one column, you figure out you list minimum payment. And in the next column, I want you to figure out, by paying minimum payment on all of them, the one with the lowest balance, how much money can you pay on that bill to get it paid off? And it's going to take you about 3 years to become debt-free at this point, but if you don't get started, it's always going to take you 3 years. So a year from now, it's still going to take you 3 years. So if you get started today, in 3 years, you'll be debt-free. So you add as much money as you can to the one with the lowest balance and get that one paid off. Then you take that credit card and you do not cancel that account, because canceling your credit card balance, your credit cards, right, immediately will lower your credit rating. It'll affect your credit rating. So I want you to put it away in a safe place. And if it's not safe around you, I want you to get a safe deposit box at the bank and put it in a safe deposit box. I don't want you to use that card. And then the money that you now freed up from that paying that card, because it's paid off, I want you to take that money and add it to the next card with the next lowest balance. And I want you to keep doing that until that's paid off. And then after that's paid off, take that money and put it on the next card. And keep going down that list until all of those cards are paid for. Once you do that, you will actually free up the amount of debt that you had, you will free up your debt. You'll also increase your credit rating, because your available credit will also increase when you're doing that. So if you go on there are a couple of credit scoring companies that I like that are free, Credit Karma and Credit Sesame, and you can see your available balance, and then you'll see how every time you do that, it'll move a little bit, and they'll send you even emails letting you know how many points your credit score has improved. So the object is to stay in the 700 club as far as your credit score is concerned, and to stay 700 or plus. If you get higher than 700, that's wonderful, but 700 will begin to affect your finances positively, and that if you ever really do need a loan, they generally will offer you higher interest rates on that loan. So as you think about that, and as you're making a list of your debt, we're going to take a really quick break right now, and we'll be back. That'll give you time to finish that worksheet up.
Mom, I got it. What are you doing in there?
I got stuck.
Oh. Are you a dog?
I wouldn't do that. Have you seen the pliers? Where'd you find those?
It's not your birthday.
Sorry.
Bye, Grandpa.
Bye, Grandpa.
Take care of yourself.
What are you doing? What are you looking for?
Hey, thanks for stopping by. You know, I followed your character since the first episode. I'm a big fan, big fan.
Thank you.
And listen, your storyline, it makes for incredible TV drama. Thing is, your drug use is very adult content. Too adult for the kids. So I'm gonna have to block you.
Oh, man.
Yeah. Well, have a good one.
You're a nice lady.
Welcome back to A Sip of Inspiration. I'm Stephanie Wilson-Coleman, the Empowerment Doctor, and this is Where's Your Balance? Throughout the show, we talked about financial setbacks. We talked about financial windfalls. Windfalls are always fun to talk about until we discovered that we were allowing emotions to control, we were allowing money to control our emotions, which is never a good thing. The last segment, we talked about making that debt worksheet and working toward actually becoming debt-free. I know today has been a lot of information, and I want to thank you all who have just hung in there with me through this show, who have dealt with your emotions, who have dealt with how you felt about things and your relationships to people, and actually have come to terms with the fact that sometimes we use money to buy love, and we do it even subconsciously. We weren't even aware of that. So I want to thank you for allowing those emotions to come up. And I want you to remember to breathe and remember that tree pose, that life requires ebb and flow. Remember, life is filled with a lot of things, a lot of movement, it's filled with harmony, effort, and all of that. So as you remember that, I want you to remember today that you have everything you need right now in this moment to change your life. And changing your life is exactly what we want to do. So I want you to do not go gently into that dark night. I want you to find a heel worth taking and take it. I want you to be the person that you were waiting for you are the miracle that has come to save you and the world. And I want you to make today so good till yesterday gets jealous. Until next time, remember, life is too short to drink cheap champagne.
You're not.
Next time, remember, life is too short to drink cheap champagne.
You're not.
Next time, remember, life is too short to drink cheap champagne.
You're not.
Champagne. Next time, remember, drink cheap champagne. Life is too short to
You're not.
champagne.